Please don't laugh. Arthur's voice cracked like glass under pressure. The words trembled out of him, too soft for the room, but loud enough to slice through the hum of a late-night diner on State Street. Across the table, Candace tilted her head, her smile curdling into cruelty. "You said you worked at Williams Tower," she said, her tone sugar-coated with venom. "I didn't know you cleaned it." A beat of silence, then a snort from the next booth. Another. Laughter rippled through the room like a wave, sharp, mean, alive with mockery. Arthur's hands curled into fists beneath the table. The cheap silverware rattled. Somewhere behind the counter, the fry cook froze mid-motion, spatula hovering above sizzling oil. Candace leaned back, crossing her legs slowly, deliberate in her performance. "God," she laughed, shaking her head. "You actually thought this was a date?" Someone lifted a phone. The faint click of a camera shattered the air. "Welcome back. Trust you're ready to jump on this interesting story. Before that, like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from in the comment section. Now, let's dive in." Arthur's chest burned. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. He reached for his jacket, trying to stand, but his knees betrayed him. And from the corner booth by the window, a woman's voice finally cut through the noise. "That's enough." The diner fell still. Every head turned toward her. The woman in a charcoal gray blazer, the one who'd been sitting alone with a cooling cup of coffee and a half-finished document glowing on her tablet. Amelia Williams. Billionaire. CEO. The kind of person people didn't approach, didn't interrupt, didn't expect to see in a place that smelled like burnt bacon and old coffee. But there she was, rising slowly, calm as a judge, eyes sharp as the glass tower she owned. Candace laughed nervously. "Excuse me." Amelia didn't answer. She only looked at Arthur. Really looked. In that suspended moment, Arthur couldn't tell whether she pitied him or saw him, whether she was about to make it worse or pull him out of the fire. He swallowed hard, voice barely a whisper. "Ma'am, you don't have to save me." Amelia's expression didn't change. Her tone was soft, steady, unsettlingly certain. Maybe I already did. Just 12 hours earlier, Arthur Robert had been standing in the half-light of his tiny South Side apartment, buttoning this same faded shirt and whispering a prayer under his breath. The air was cold that morning. One of those Chicago dawns where the sky feels heavy and the radiators never quite do their job. The hum of his old refrigerator was the only sound. No kids laughing, no music, just quiet. He moved through his morning ritual like a soldier, polished the shoes he'd owned for 10 years, poured a cup of black coffee, checked that his ID badge still clipped cleanly to his belt. On the windowsill, a stray cat waited, tail flicking. Arthur cracked open a can of tuna, smiling as the cat purred in thanks. "See you tomorrow, buddy," he murmured, stepping out into the gray. The bus ride downtown took an hour. He watched the skyline grow with every stop, the shimmering glass towers that belonged to people like Amelia Williams. To Arthur, those buildings weren't symbols of success. They were reflections he wiped clean every night, knowing he'd never belong inside them. At Williams Tower, the lobby gleamed like a cathedral of capitalism. Executives in tailored coats brushed past him, eyes on their phones. Some nodded politely. Most didn't notice him at all. Arthur didn't mind. Being invisible meant being safe. Still, some nights, when he cleaned the 62nd floor, the CEO's level, he'd catch his reflection in the mirrored walls and wonder what it would feel like to matter up there. To be seen. That thought had drifted through his mind again that afternoon when his phone buzzed. A notification. New match. Candace. Her messages were light, teasing. She liked jazz. Old movies. Said she admired guys who worked hard for what they had. Arthur smiled at the screen, the way a man might smile at sunrise after too many dark mornings. That night, he withdrew his last $10 from an ATM near 63rd Street. Crumpled bills that smelled faintly of detergent and hope. Enough for coffee and pie. Enough for a chance. If you've ever hoped for something simple, a chance, a smile, a moment to be seen, then this story isn't just his. It's ours. Don't look away. Arthur ironed his shirt one last time and whispered, "Maybe tonight'll be different." He couldn't have known how right and how wrong he would be. Arthur arrived 15 minutes early. The neon, open 24 hours sign buzzed weakly above the diner door, flickering in the chill wind off State Street. He chose a booth near the window, close enough to the light, but far enough from the laughter of late-night students in the corner. He checked his reflection in the napkin holder, rehearsing a joke he'd looked up online. So, a janitor walks into a bar. He chuckled softly, then stopped, afraid it might sound dumb. When Candace walked in, heads turned. She was stunning in a red coat and heels that clicked like punctuation. Arthur stood, smiling shyly. "You look wow. You look amazing." She smiled, but her eyes didn't linger. "Thanks. Sorry I'm late." Her phone buzzed, and she slid into the booth, tapping quickly under the table. Arthur tried to keep the conversation afloat. "I used to play guitar a little. My mom said music keeps your soul clean, even when your hands get dirty." Candace glanced up briefly, then back to her phone. "That's nice." Minutes passed. A strange energy began to hum through the air. The doorbell jingled, and 3 young people strutted in, laughing, holding their phones up like flashlights. "Hey, Candace," one shouted. "Is this him?" Arthur frowned. "What's going on?" Candace's face flushed, but she didn't deny it. One of her friends zoomed in with the camera. "Say hi, janitor man. You're trending tonight. Hashtag date the janitor." The laughter hit like glass breaking. Arthur's breath caught. He stood slowly, hands shaking. You set me up?" No one answered. The whole diner seemed to tilt, faces blurring in heat and shame. And then a voice, steady, cutting through the noise like winter wind. "That's enough." Amelia Williams rose from her corner booth, her eyes like mirrors. She crossed the room and took Arthur's arm. "Mr. Robert," she said coolly, "we're late for our meeting upstairs." The room fell silent as she turned to the stunned crowd. "Put his bill on mine." Outside, under the harsh glow of the streetlight, Arthur whispered, "Ma'am, you don't have to save me." "Maybe I already did," Amelia said. The wind off the lake was sharp enough to sting. Arthur kept his eyes on the cracked sidewalk, his breath coming out in small white clouds. Behind him, Amelia Williams followed, her heels clicking softly against the concrete. "You don't have to walk me," he said, voice low. "Train's just a few blocks." "I know," she replied, "but I can't just go home and pretend that didn't happen." Arthur gave a faint, humorless laugh. "That's kind of what I was hoping to do." They walked in silence for a block, passing the glow of a 7-Eleven and the faint rumble of the L in the distance. Streetlights flickered overhead. To anyone watching, they looked like 2 strangers who had nothing in common. And maybe that was true. "I'm sorry," Amelia said finally. "What they did, it was cruel." Arthur shrugged. "Happens more than you'd think. People don't really see me. Just the mop, the uniform, the quiet guy in the corner." He exhaled, hands buried in his pockets. "Sometimes I think I stopped being a person to them a long time ago." Amelia's chest tightened. She'd built her empire on precision, efficiency, image, and never once had she thought about the man who cleaned her office floors at midnight. "I can't imagine what that feels like," she said softly. Arthur looked over at her, tired eyes meeting hers. "Sure you can. Just from the other side of the glass." For a moment, neither spoke. The city buzzed around them. Horns, sirens, laughter spilling from a bar. But it all felt far away. He smiled faintly. "You ever clean a 60-story window at 3 a.m.? You start to see the city differently. All the light, all the noise. It's beautiful from up high, but you also notice how small you really are." Amelia slowed her steps, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe I've never seen it at all. Something shifted, quiet but certain. Not romance, not yet. Just recognition. 2 souls meeting halfway between privilege and pain." At the train station entrance, Arthur turned to her. "Thank you for what you did back there." Amelia smiled. "You don't owe me thanks. Just promise me you'll come to work tomorrow." He hesitated, then nodded. As the train roared into the station, she watched him disappear behind its glass doors, his reflection swallowed by motion, her own face looking back, uncertain of what had just begun. Arthur almost didn't go to work. He sat on the edge of his bed that morning, uniform folded beside him, replaying every laugh from the night before. Every word, every camera flash. Shame clung to him like dust he couldn't wipe off. When he finally forced himself onto the bus, he kept his head down. Maybe, he thought, he'd take the service elevator straight to the basement and avoid everyone. But when he stepped into the lobby of Williams Tower, the security guard called out, "Hey, Arthur, this came for you." It was a cream-colored envelope with a single line written in elegant handwriting. "Meet me on floor 60, EW." He hesitated before stepping into the elevator. Floor 60 was where the air smelled expensive, leather, espresso, and silence. He half expected to be told he was in the wrong place. But there she was. Amelia Williams stood by the window, holding 2 cups of coffee and looking almost nervous. "I'm glad you came," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." Arthur adjusted his cap, unsure where to look. "Didn't really think I had a choice." She smiled faintly. "You always have a choice. I just wanted to apologize. Not as your boss. Just as a person who saw something she shouldn't have ignored sooner." Arthur blinked, caught off guard. "You don't have to." "I do," she interrupted gently. "Last night I opened my eyes. I spend my life looking down from these floors, but I don't see what's really happening beneath them. I want to understand what life looks like from your side of the glass." He studied her face, expecting pity, finding sincerity instead. And that was how it began. Coffee on Fridays. Quiet talks after hours. Her questions were simple but real. His answers, honest, sometimes raw. If more people in power stopped to listen instead of judge, maybe the world wouldn't break so many hearts. Remember this moment. As Arthur left that day, he turned back once, watching Amelia still standing by the window, 2 reflections on opposite sides of the same pane. It started with a photograph. A passerby at a downtown cafe had noticed them, Arthur in his work jacket, Amelia in a simple coat, both laughing over paper cups of coffee. It wasn't romantic, not even close. But the camera doesn't care about truth. By noon the next day, the photo was everywhere. Billionaire and her janitor read one headline. CEO finds love in the custodial closet, joked another. Within hours, the story spread like wildfire. Memes, tweets, late-night punchlines. People zoomed in on the image, debating whether her smile looked too soft, whether his hand was too close. Arthur saw it first while mopping the lobby floor. The phone buzzed in his pocket, texts from coworkers, screenshots from friends. His stomach twisted as the comments scrolled by. Gold digger janitor. PR stunt. She's lost it. By the time Amelia arrived at the office, the boardroom was already filled. Her legal counsel looked pale. Her PR director spoke in careful, panicked tones. "Amelia," one of the board members said sharply, "this situation is compromising. You need to distance yourself from that man immediately." She glanced at them, her jaw tightening. "That man has a name," she said quietly. Another leaned forward. "You're risking the company's image. Investors are calling." Amelia set her pen down, eyes cold as steel. "Maybe you should spend one night mopping the floors before deciding who's beneath me." The room fell silent. She stood, gathering her notes. "I won't apologize for having a conversation with another human being. If that makes the company uncomfortable, maybe the company needs to change." Outside the conference room, she paused at the window, looking down at the city below. The same city Arthur had told her looked beautiful from 3 in the morning. For the first time, she wondered if he'd been right. Meanwhile, in the janitor's closet 6 floors down, Arthur sat on an overturned bucket, staring at his phone as his own reflection trembled in the black screen. He whispered, "What have I done to her?" The conference hall pulsed with noise, camera shutters, murmurs, the hum of anticipation before storm. Reporters filled every row, their pens poised, their eyes hungry. Amelia Williams stepped onto the stage, her heels echoing against the marble floor. She didn't look like the invincible CEO from the magazine covers. She looked human, tired, resolute, and done hiding. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice calm but firm. "I know why you're all here." The room went still. Behind her, on a large screen, someone had already projected the now infamous photo. Her and Arthur laughing at the cafe. She didn't flinch. "You've seen this picture," Amelia said. "You've read the jokes, the headlines. So let me tell you the truth." She turned toward the audience, scanning the faces that once celebrated her success. His name is Arthur Robert. He's worked in my building for 12 years. He cleans the floors after you've all gone home. He keeps our tower standing, and I'm proud to know him. A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. Flashbulbs exploded. Amelia continued, her tone steady but charged with conviction. If your first instinct is to laugh at the idea that a billionaire could share coffee with a janitor, then maybe it's not the photo that's wrong. It's the mirror we're looking into. She paused, letting that sink in. That's why today, I'm announcing the Bridge Program, a new initiative that provides education, housing support, and career opportunities for every worker across our properties. Because dignity doesn't wear a title. From the back of the room, Arthur stood silently, cap in hand, eyes wet. Cameras turned toward him. For the first time, he didn't look away. When Amelia finished, the room was silent. No questions, no laughter, just the weight of truth hanging heavy in the air. And then, slowly, someone began to clap. Arthur exhaled shakily, whispering to himself, she really did it. But as applause filled the room, neither of them noticed the board member standing near the exit, phone pressed to his ear, already making a call that would change everything. 3 months later, the old community center on Chicago's South Side buzzed with new life. The walls, once cracked and gray, were now bright with color, painted by hands that had spent years sweeping floors, fixing pipes, or raising children alone. Arthur Roberts stood in the middle of it all, clipboard in hand, sleeves rolled up, laughter echoing across the hall. The sign above the entrance reads simply, "The Bridge Program, a second chance starts here." He didn't wear his janitor's uniform anymore. Instead, he wore a name badge that said Program Coordinator. For the first time in a long time, his shoulders sat a little straighter. Amelia Williams visited often, though never with an entourage. No cameras, no headlines, just her and a box of donuts for the volunteers. Careful, Arthur teased one morning, wiping paint off her sleeve. You're gonna ruin your billionaire reputation. She smiled, dipping the roller into a tray. Good, maybe I'll trade it for something better. They worked side by side, repainting a wall that still smelled faintly of fresh plaster. Children laughed nearby. An old jazz record played softly through a portable speaker. It was ordinary and perfect. As dusk settled outside, the two sat on the front steps, sharing lukewarm coffee for paper cups. Streetlights flickered to life, just like that first night. Arthur broke the silence. You gave me back my name, you know. Not the janitor. Not the headline. Just me. Amelia turned to him, eyes soft. And you reminded me I had a soul. For a moment, neither spoke. The city hummed quietly around them, alive, flawed, and beautiful. Inside, volunteers were still laughing, still painting, still building something that might outlast them both. Amelia looked toward the glowing skyline. This is just the beginning, Arthur. He smiled. Then let's make it count. But as they sat there beneath the Chicago night, a shadow crossed the window, a man in a suit watching from across the street, phone in hand. Because not everyone wanted the bridge to stand. 5 years later, Chicago glowed under a soft spring rain. Billboards downtown carried a familiar name, the Bridge Program, now a national initiative with centers in 20 cities and thousands of lives quietly changed. Arthur Roberts stood in one of them, helping a young custodian fill out his first college application. You don't have to rush, he said with a grin. The first step's just believing you belong. The man nodded, eyes bright. Arthur saw himself in that face, the same fear, the same fragile hope. Up north, Amelia Williams lived a different life now. She'd stepped away from the boardroom, trading glass towers for chalkboards. At a Chicago community college, she taught leadership ethics, not from textbooks, but from memory. Her first lecture always began the same way. Power means nothing if you can't look someone in the eye and see yourself. That evening, after class, she walked through the drizzle to a familiar place, the old diner on State Street. It had been renovated since that night. New booths, warm lights, a photo on the wall, the Bridge Center opening day, with Arthur and Amelia standing side by side. Arthur was already there, stirring his coffee. When she sat across from him, he smiled that same shy smile. You know, he said softly, I used to think $10 was all I had. You showed me worth isn't money. It's being seen. Amelia's gaze softened. Then promise me you'll never hide again. He nodded. Not anymore. The hum of conversation filled the diner. No laughter at anyone's expense, just warmth. Two lives that once crossed in humiliation now sat in peace. The world outside reflected in the clean glass. If you believe every person deserves to be seen, to be treated as more than what they earn, then don't just watch stories like this. Carry them. Remember them. Be part of them. As they stepped into the night, the neon lights shimmered against the wet pavement. Two reflections walking side by side, proof that dignity, once given, can change everything. Fade out. Thank you for staying to the very end. Trust the story captivate you because the next will captivate you even more. Support us by liking, subscribe, and sharing the video. Lots of people would love to see the video. Thank you.